Hey kids, this is Ive. How you doing? It is day 21 of RPG A Day 2017, August 21st, and our question for today is, which RPG does the most with the least words? I'm really pumped. My girlfriend had an extra, her old iPad, and so she got a new one, and so it's really hard to read PDFs off of my laptop or phone, and this thing is great, so I'm really digging this. Anyhow, so yeah, which RPG does the most with the least words? Well, this is one of those questions, once again, I'm not 100% sure that I'm qualified to answer. I certainly have games that have low page counts. That's not surprising because the OSR, those original games, they're really, really small. They didn't have a heck of a lot. And, I'm not counting things like the first edition Dungeons & Dragons, Gygaxian Prose, that was all over the Dungeon Master's Guide. The actual, meat of the rules, and things like Basic, the Holmes Basic, the Moldvay Basic, didn't have a lot of words. One of the shortest page counts here, really, the games I have is Delving Deeper, which is an OSR clone of OD&D. Really well written, really concise, really short. So, still got a page count. Not really sure how many pages it's got here, like 129, I think, but packs a lot in here. Does it do the most or the least amount of pages? I'm not sure. I've got Swords and Six-Siders, which has a really small page count. Kind of gives you this bare bones of, how to play that game as far as the rules are concerned. Doesn't give you a heck of a lot of information about how to role play or anything like that, but gives you the rules. And there are plenty of games out there that have just this really teeny, like one page. And, I could say there's something like The Pool, which, out of these games that have just, 2 or 3 or whatever pages, was revolutionary. I didn't realize it was revolutionary when it happened because I wasn't playing back then, but being turned on to it, looking at that, examining it, that's a really cool game, and it was really kind of pivotal, I guess, for the hobby, because a lot of people looked at that, and for the first time it gave this codified method of shifting authority, narrative authority from the game master to the players, and how do you do that, and when does that happen? And it was awesome. So a lot of people kind of stood the game world on its head, or game designing world on its head, and people kind of stole that idea and used it in a lot of other games. So that did a lot with quite a few words, a small word count. But does that do the most? I'm not really sure. So what I really wanted to do is kind of tie this into one of the alternate questions I had there, and maybe kind of answer part of the alternate question, and that's how long does it take to learn to get the most out of a game? And to me, this is really related to that. What am I looking for when I pick up a book? Like, what do I want it to tell me? Well, I want it to tell me how to play the game. I don't necessarily want a whole bunch of flowery prose. This is one of my favorites, right here, Lamentations of the Flame Princess. It adds just enough flavor text. When it comes right down to it, I know I say that an awful lot, it gets right down to how do you play this game? What are the rules? One of the things I look for, and that will make my learning curve much shorter, is if it's explained really, really well. If it gives you examples when things might be a little bit confusing. There's a lot of great games that do that. I've picked up games where they don't do such a good job. Their examples of play kind of suck. I've seen other ones, which I'm really happy about, where the examples of play kind of go in and it gives you the mechanics behind it. Like, this is what's really happening right here as these players are doing this. Higher page count, but I appreciate that. And this is kind of related to this question. How short of a page count do you really want? Yes, a guy like me, I like things simple, really laid out, really fast, really clear, really concise, really direct. So I like that short page count. I want you to tell me what the rules are. I want you to tell me, what's up with the setting, what's up with the premise. But just give it to me. I don't want to search through a novel worth of pages to get that novel full of flavor text, fluff, whatever you want to call it. It's cool if it's there someplace, but I don't want an awful lot. Hollow Earth Expedition does a great job with that. Just kind of, it's a big book, big page count, but in each particular section, it's kind of getting right to the point. A little bit of flavor here and there. But what else do I really want? What's going to make it easier for me to learn to how to play the game the best, where I'm starting to get the most out of that experience? One of the other things that I want to see in the book is why are we doing things this way? What are the rationales? I've joked around and talked to Anthony, talked to a couple other people that, in the name of page count and lowering page count, the explanations for why we're doing things this way, what's really going on behind the scenes, why do we put this mechanic this way, why is the procedure what it is, I'd rather have that in there. It helps me to get the most out of my game experience if I understand not only what I'm supposed to do, but why I'm doing it. And sometimes if it gives me more than one example, I appreciate that. Some things are pretty clear, and if it gives me an example and I don't need it, I can skip over it. But other times I want to see like more of an example of how do you actually do this mechanic. This is worded kind of confusingly, or this is really just kind of an odd scenario. How does this actually happen? TechMark did a great job with explaining some things that could be on the surface a little bit complex. What are you talking about? Apply an adjective to somebody? So a few more pages, but he explained it really well, and it's really recursive book design that I'm so fond of. Something like Circle of Hands, Ron Edwards explains to you quite a bit why you're doing things, why something else doesn't work. I appreciate that kind of information in there, and that helps me to get more out of my game experience. Ultimately, I need to play the game. I need to play it with some people that are have either played it before, or some people that are really kind of astute and kind of are figuring out, hey, I think this is what's really going on. So I'm trying to sound not elitist, but I like to play with some intelligent people where we can all kind of get together and say, hey, I think this is what's going on here, or this is how we should do this. So other people, the input of more than one person interpreting the game really, really helps me get the most out of my experience. But before we ever sit down, before we ever play it, before I ever get advice from somebody else that's played it or run it, or we're playing it together, and we, like I've done with RuneSlinger when we've done our Ubiquity games, where in the beginning we were kind of saying, well, what do we do here? Is this the correct, or what would you do in this situation? And I've done it with more than just him in that game. I've done it with other people where I played games that are new to me. Before I get all that, and all that stuff's good, all that stuff's vital, the human element of gaming is crucial. But I want it laid out in the rules. I want it simple, I want it concise, I want it direct, but then I want you to explain the things that might be a little bit complicated or a little bit confusing. And give me the rationale. Put the extra 10 pages in the book. Give me the rationale for why we're doing what we're doing. How is what we're doing going to accomplish the goal of the game? What is the goal of the game? I'd rather see that there, even if it increases the amount of stuff I have to read. So was this a rant? I'm not really sure. But yeah, so there are games that absolutely do an awful lot with a low page count. However, there are times that I appreciate a few more pages from a lot of games, including games out there that are 400, 500 pages. I'd still like to see a few more pages where they explain, a little bit more of what's going on underneath the hood and what their rationales are. So that's kind of my answer to 2 questions, I think, if I actually answer them. So happy RPG day, and talk to you tomorrow.